Episode number 8 of the High End Trial Podcast. On today's episode, we will review the results of the WUSV qualification trial and interview with Schutzhund pioneer Gene England. Let's go.
Live from America's heartland, this is the High End Trial Podcast, your source for Schutzhund IPO and working dog news and interviews. Now, your host, he's all bark and no bite, Big John Wolf.
Welcome to another episode of the High End Trial Podcast. We got a good one for you today, folks, and before we get started, I would like to invite you guys to check out highendtrial.com. That's my website. I publish weekly blog articles, new podcasts, run contests, all kinds of cool stuff. So go on there, check it out. It'll be a good resource for you. So this time of year is kind of the wrap-up of the spring trial season before it gets too hot to hold any of the trials. The last trial kind of the season here is the 2015 WUSV qualification trial. It took place in Buffalo, New York. It was at the same venue that the USCA Working Dog Championship was held. Tony Capani and his team did an excellent job once again. They organized 2 events within a month, so he really deserves a hand for his effort and putting on 2 world-class events. So the qualification trial, there were 16 competitors, 10 from USCA and 6 from the GSDCA. The way it works is the top 6 make the WUSV team, with 6th place being the alternate. This year it was judged by Doug Deacon. There were 3 helpers selected for the event, 2 from USCA. That would be Ryan White and Don Yell. And the third from GSDCA, Pat Kuhn. In the helper selection, Ryan was selected for the front half, and Don Yell was selected for the back half. This year it was a very tight competition. As a matter of fact, 4th, 5th, and 6th all tied overall with a 274. The way Schutzhund works is with a tie like that, they go by highest protection after that. So that the highest protection is kind of the tiebreaker. So in 6th place, it was Chris Maverden in Danger with a 274. 5th place was Dave Croyer and Archer with a 274. 4th place was Marty Segredo and KO with a 274. 3rd place was Beth Bradley and Fight with a 276. 2nd was Jim Alloway with Neo and a 278. And 1st was Debbie Zappia and Iron with a 290. So that will be our 2015 WUSV team should no changes take place. This year, the WUSV takes place in Lahti, Finland, September 23rd through the 27th. So congratulations to those folks that made the team there, and good luck in Finland. So we will get right into today's interview. Today, we are interviewing the one and only Gene England. Gene England has been around the sport since almost the inception in the U.S. He made his first world team in 1979 with his very first dog, and since had made the world team several times. He won North American Championships, Schutzhund 3 tournaments, FH Championships, World Qualifiers, and it kind of culminated with his win in the 1992 International World Championship in West Germany, where he beat out approximately 400 other dogs. He's also been the mentor of many top trainers and competitors, and had an opportunity to sit down with him and discuss kind of his career and his thoughts on dogs. So, without any further ado, here's Gene England.
I cast no stones, and I build no walls.
Welcome, everybody, to the High End Trial Podcast. Today, we have Gene England. How's it going, Gene?
It's going fine, John.
First, man, I got to ask, I'm a former college football player myself. How was it playing for Bear Bryant, man?
I tell everybody it's pretty damn demanding. It's pretty demanding. it's at the highest level. Of course, hell, everybody knows that. I was fortunate enough to be recruited by him back in, I guess it was 67. Kenny Stabler was a senior when I was a freshman. But playing for the man was extremely demanding, both mentally and physically. You know, he asked you to give, the old saying, 110%.
Yeah.
And you had to put it out. I was fortunate enough, you know, I played for him for 1 year, and through the summer, I transferred the following summer. But in that 1 year, you know, freshmen were only allowed to play on the varsity, you know, squad as they'd been there 1 year, and freshmen weren't eligible for the varsity.
Uh-huh.
And we had our own schedule. And the only team that beat us as freshmen that year was Archie Manning at Ole Miss, and we paid the piper, you know, for that loss.
Man.
It's one of those situations, you know, that if you lost, you paid the piper. But I enjoyed playing for him. I started for him as a freshman, and I was the starting left defensive tackle on the varsity squad. And then during the summer, I'm not necessarily was a big fan of the school.
Uh-huh.
The world Coach Pine, he was a great guy. Never raised his voice to me the entire time I was there, but as long as you put it out, you know, he was a great guy to be around, you know, but he was intimidating as hell. He scared the living crap out of me, you know.
Yeah.
And I always said there ain't a whole lot that scares me, but Coach Brown was one thing. And when he come off that tower, he scared the hell out of everybody, coaches included, you know. But I finished up my playing, you know, Western Kentucky University in Bowling Green. And the main reason I transferred schools was I didn't like the school.
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I understand about the coach you said didn't say too many words. I had a coach. He's now the defensive coordinator for the Arizona Cardinals, and man, he didn't say too many words, but when he spoke, you listened. So I can definitely understand that. So what did you learn from these coaches that kind of led into your dog training? Did you learn anything that helped you become a better teacher to other people and a coach for other people?
You know, I think that, you know, one thing I always said, you know, particularly because I teach a lot of classes, taught a lot of classes, worked with a lot of people, and I train a lot of police officers. And I always tell the people I work with, you got to understand, you know, I always want to be a coach and a teacher, and that's basically what I became, was a coach and a teacher. You know, and I tell everybody, I said, it's pretty simple. You know, I'm a motivator, a stimulator, an intimidator, and a dominator. and that is pretty much, you know, because when you deal with a lot of different people, you got to eliminate the bullshit, you know, to get down to what you're going to work with. And over the years, from having been in the dogs, you know, since 1970, been involved with the dogs, the one thing that I guess I discovered, you know, being at the university was Coach Pine taught us how to work hard.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he taught you about putting forth that 110% effort. You put it in, you'll get it back out of it, you know. And I think that's the main thing, because I've had real strong work ethics when it comes to working with the dogs and working with the people with the dogs. I've had extremely strong work ethics. You know, I put the hours in, and I got the results.
Mm-hmm. Well, very cool, man. So you mentioned getting started in 1970 in dogs. How did you get started?
You know, I was working on a construction project there at the university there at Western Kentucky. One of the coaches had got me a job there, and somebody had came in and stole all the tools. Mm-hmm. And then 2 weeks later, they did it again. And I was already married then, and I made a comment to one of the guys that was standing there, you know, just BSing around with. I said, you know, if my dog was in here, this wouldn't be happening. And I'm just joshing around, you know, I'm just passing time, waiting to see if we were going to get to work that day. I guess after making that comment, you know, that if my dog was in here, this wouldn't be happening, I was called to the superintendent's office. And he asked me about, you know, the dog. And I said, what dog? He says, ain't you got a badass dog? I said, oh, yeah. And I was talking about my wife's dog. She had a German Shepherd dog, you know. And all I'd been doing was bulling around, you know. And he said, how bad is she? I said, I couldn't say no. I said, hell, she's bad. And he said, I'd like to rent her from you. Well, boy, that shocked me. And I said, well, nah, I can't do that, man. He said, why? I said, she'll eat you up. So hell, I followed one up with another one, And he says, what do you mean? I said, man, I can't. He said, hell, I don't want you to rent her to me. I want you to put her in this building at night. Well, I didn't have two dimes to rub together, I mean, I was married, and had a kid, was playing ball, didn't have any money at all, and I said, well, yeah, I'll put her in here at night for you. He goes, all right. He said, I'll give you $80 a week. And I couldn't believe that. Man, I couldn't believe he'd give me $80 a week. And this is back, you understand, this is back in 1970.
Uh-huh.
And to put this dog in this dormitory at night for $80 a week, shit, man, married with a kid, that made me feel great.
Yeah.
Before I got out of college, I had 22 dogs leased out.
Wow.
I had incorporated a company called K9 Security Patrol Incorporated. I've had as many as 30, 40 guards working for me, uniform guards working at one time. Mm-hmm. Had dogs leased out where, used to put them in buildings at night, had uniformed guards working with dogs, worked some pretty aggressive jobs where the dogs and the armed guards were used, and built a pretty good rep about it. And heck, if you're going to have that kind of dogs, that many dogs, I'd started the kennel. And next thing you know, I'd built a kennel. And that was Windy Wake Kennel. And I had K9 Security Patrol Incorporated. Man, I was smoking. And I guess it was back in 76, 77, I was hearing about this sport called Schutzhund.
Mm-hmm.
And next thing you know, I was checking into that some. And went up and took a female up to Wisconsin and bred her to a dog that belonged to Paul Humbach.
Uh-huh.
And he and his wife Marie owned Oakwood Kennels. And I bred to a dog by the name of N.O. on Trieftal, which was a 1974 Bundesliga.
Wow.
And old man Humbach, he ended up owning two Bundesliga dogs, which was the 74 Bundesliga and the 78 Bundesliga, which was Father and Son. Both of them had been trained by Fritz Bueller.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
I got to meet Fritz and Paul and some of those guys. And the first dog that I competed was, I joined the dog sport Schutzhund in 1978. And it'd only been around over here for about 4 years. So it started over here, if I remember correctly, about 1974.
Mm-hmm. So
I started playing around in 78.
Cool. So what was it like in the beginning there? I mean, everybody had to be kind of new. Were you just kind of trying stuff out, or did you have some guidance?
Well, you're pretty much on your own, or you had to travel. And because, the clubs that were around had started in the Peninsula Canine Corps out in California was one of the first ones, and that was the John and Kate Kerner, which had been really, really big instrumental in the sport even back then in the origin of it as well as today. And I think there was a Heinz Manson or something like that was actually one of the originators of the sport along with Bernard and Sue Riedel and John and Kay Kerner. And there was the first president of the sport was Luke McFarland. And the year that I'd actually started getting involved in it, there was transition between the first president and the second president, which was Luke McFarland and Jerry Slavens.
Mm-hmm.
So Jerry Slavens came in there, he and Doris, and they worked as president. I think it was from, I guess that would have been in 79, 80, something like that. And I started actually training and working with a dog by the name of Tito Montano's one. And I made the world team with him the first year I competed, which was in 79.
Wow.
And we went to Denmark and competed the first year on the world team in 79 with Tito. And you had the Hombachs in that area of Wisconsin. That was a big influence.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't a whole lot of anything going on down in there, so we formed the Western Kentucky Schutzhund Club. And I guess one of the most influential people that I had met, and I met some pretty good ones, because in the very beginning, you're picking up bits and pieces here, and I've been in guard dogs and security dogs from 1970 all the way up until 78, 79 when I got involved in the sport, involved with it, and it just kind of took off playing in the sport and got more involved into the police service dogs and got out of the guard dogs and the security end of it, went more into police service dogs, training detector dogs as well as police service dogs, and was messing with the sport on the side and had quite a bit of success in that, and gained some following myself, and I kept bringing people around that I thought could be an influence, and I'd met and trained some at seminars with the great Bernhard Mantle, and attended a couple of Fritz Bueller seminars, a couple of Helmut Reiser seminars. But the man I think that most influenced me was Reinhard Lindner.
Okay.
And he was a custom dog school, and he was more geared toward that type of service dog like I was with the police service dog end. But he was also a breeder and a real advocate of the sport, and probably one of the finest people I'd ever met, and probably read dogs and understood dogs better than anybody. Mantle was also, when it come to reading the dog and understanding the dog, and those two guys right there, to me, just had a big influence on me as far as getting into the psychic of the dog, getting into the involvement of the dog,
Wow. Well, cool, man. So with your first dog, you made the world championship, and it kind of accumulated into you winning the world championship in 1992. What qualities do you think that you have that allowed you to become a world champion? Because a lot of good dog trainers will never be a world champion. So what made you stand out?
You got to understand, as an international world champion, that wasn't a WSB, but as an international world championship, it was several hundred dogs competing in King West Germany, and it just all came about that weekend. I think I won it with a 290. And I'd won the world qualifier that year with a 292, and so it was a year. I'd been on the world team a few times, and made some pretty decent scores over the years. But that year, it happened to come together in King West Germany, and with a 292. I think the main thing, John, is from the old athletic days. Hell yeah, I'm a competitor.
Yeah.
I love competing. That's the thing. I love that training curve, man. I love taking a dog that somebody else had it maybe, and he wasn't doing very good, and he wasn't recognized very well. I'd see something in him, and I'd take him and just restructure him, and just shape him to meet me, and God bless me with the ability to understand him. And I think because you take the good, strong work ethics, from the ex-athletic days, you take the strong work ethics, and you take that strong desire to understand why and how the dogs do it the way they do it. Then you take the influences of the Reinhard Lindners and the Bernhard Mantles and some of those people, and then when you wake up and realize that you have to become who you are, then you start thinking more in depth to the hows and the whys. Because in the very beginning, everybody just listened to the European influence and did it their way, and a lot of that European method was just plain old jerk-ass, kick-ass, when it comes to the training of the dogs. And hell, I could jerk-ass and kick-ass with the best of them.
Yeah.
I was fairly successful with it that way, too. But as I gained more following, a lot of the contingency of the followers were females, and the females just aren't set. They're just not into that jerk ass, kick ass. And I think that's one thing that probably made me better at what I was doing, was I was smart enough to realize that if I was going to have these female handlers and trainers coming around me, that they all were not 6'2", 250, 60-pound badass. That you had to formulate training philosophies and things that they could listen to and hear and understand it. And because a lot of the training I did had certain steps to it, and I demanded you had to follow these things. And you got to you teach everybody to have a feel. That's the one thing you don't teach nobody is how to feel it.
Yeah.
I said, can I touch your dog? And they think I want to put my hand on the head. Hell no. I want to touch the inside of the dog.
Mm-hmm.
I want to touch to see why he's insecure about this. I want to see why he's strong about this, or why he's fearful of that. And the one thing I loved about Reinhard Lindner, he could see a dog come into his vision out there at a distance.
Mm-hmm.
In just a matter of just casting his eyes on a dog for just a matter of seconds, hell, he knew the dog.
Wow.
And Mantle was like that too. He could see the dog, and he could see his weaknesses. He could see his strengths. He could not only do that, and through the fact of listening to these guys and having a good understanding of it, my God, it got to the point where it was almost like it was an invasion of privacy. I'm serious about this, John.
Uh-huh.
It got to the point I could literally look at the dogs. It just seemed like I could see him within the dog's soul.
Uh-huh.
And I could see the abuse that they'd been under.
Uh-huh.
I could see the misunderstanding they'd been under. I could see where they'd been handled with too hard a hand. I could see where they've not been handled with a calm enough or firm enough hand. And like I said, I was blessed with knowing what to do
Uh-huh.
and how to shape that behavior.
Do you think that's a function of seeing a lot of dogs? Because at that point you've been in the sport, you've been in it for 10 years, whatever, or do you think that's just something that you were born with?
Well, I think God blessed me with the ability, to see in the people, to see in the dogs,
Mm-hmm.
and finally over the years of being just a big hard head and a hard ass, because a lot of people that seen me later on in years said, "My God, you don't even act like the same person, man. You used to be such a hard ass on people and on the dogs. My God, I can't even believe this is you."
Yeah.
So I think the teacher educator more came out in me. If I had been more of a thorough teacher and educator, more along the lines of like Debbie Zakia,
Mm-hmm.
because she's an excellent educator. She had things broke down. So I met her later, and she was in her beginning end of it. But the main thing is, I started challenging myself to break it down more, and I broke it down into steps. I'm a firm believer in steps, and I tell people you got to create the objective, and when you create the objective, I surround it with distractions.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, "Well, why do you do that?" I said, "Well, because when I, try to set up the objective, the dog has to understand what the objective is. It's got to be very small for him to accomplish that. So you mark that particular behavior, and once you understand to mark that progressive behavior, then you can shape that behavior. So to me, it's understanding the objective and surrounding it with distractions where the dog has to concentrate. And through his concentration, he eliminates the errors.
Mm-hmm.
And through the elimination of the error, he becomes successful. And through the success, he gains confidence.
Very cool, man.
And I tell everybody, I said, with boys, I keep a little bitty rules for me. I tell people, I said, first of all, use the 3 F's. Fair, firm, fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, and through the fairness of things, the firmness of things, we have a hell of a lot of fun. Then I throw in the 2 C's. I use the 3 F's, fair, firm, fun, and I use the 2 C's, consistently consistent.
Very
And most people are very, very inconsistent.
Mm-hmm.
They're lazy. Most people are lazy. And the ones that do extremely well are the ones that have good, strong work ethics, both physically and mentally. Because dog training is not just something you can put a lead on a dog's neck and jerk it around with a chain. Hell, if you think about it, when you first start out, they give you a lead and they give you a choke collar. And what the hell is the purpose of a choke collar? It is the purpose of choking the dog into compliance.
Yeah.
And some of the best things that ever happened to the dog sport is some of your female competitors coming through the AKC ranks that learn how to use inducement and reward with the dogs. And there's some great ones involved in AKC obedience by the women. And the best thing that ever happened to Schutzhund USA is more of the women getting involved into the sport and bringing that inducive side of training into the sport versus we men jerk ass, kick ass.
Yeah.
I'm serious about that. You know, the more, I mean, and there's a lot of AKC influence. I mean, Debbie Zapke would give credit, you know, to a lady that influenced her a whole lot in the AKC in her obedience, and I think Debbie is one of the most productive, successful AKC type obedience trainers in the country when it comes to her dog sport.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, she's got a method of breaking things down, and she's very disciplined. She's a hard hell. She wins because she outworks and outthinks people.
Yeah. Yep.
And she doesn't believe in just going out there and don't think she won't get firm. She will.
Yep.
But you know, she knows when to be firm, and she knows how to be inducive to the dog and mark that behavior. That's a whole lot of that comes to her hard work ethics. I know. Mm-hmm. I work with her a whole lot. I know exactly how hard she's willing to work.
Yep. Well, cool, man. So when I first heard your name years ago, it was in reference to table training. Can you kind of explain to me the theory behind the table training? And I know there's different tables, square table versus round table. You can go into a little bit of that?
Well, you know, I was in Redding, California doing a seminar, and Phyllis Dobbs at the time, it used to be Phyllis Hyatt, had been successful in dog sport. Mm-hmm. She was married to a man by the name of Jim Dobbs, and Jim was the trainer person for the Tritronic collars. He worked with him, and he'd been to a couple of seminars with Reisner and Buell, and he didn't enjoy that, didn't like it. He didn't feel it worked his way, and she conned him into coming to one of my gigs, and I think he was extremely impressed with how I used, you know, created objectives with a dog just surrounded with distractions and got as much out of the dog through the concentration. I mean, because that was new to him.
Uh-huh.
Because they trained him pretty much in a sterile environment,
mm-hmm.
and out there, I noticed they had a funny-looking long table out there, you know. Yeah. And I looked at it and I said, that's the old retrieving tables, and nobody remembers who invented it, but somebody invented it. And Jim followed me around out there and done a lot of Q&A. He and Phyllis and I sat around, you know, through lunches and dinners together, and it was really enjoyable because he was picking my brain, I was picking his brain, mm-hmm. and we was talking about dog training on another level. And he did a demonstration on how to force retrieve a dog on the long table. Mm-hmm. And the moment I was watching, I'm one of these people that when I see you doing something, I immediately recognize the value of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I immediately seek to modify it,
mm-hmm.
see if I can make it better. You know, and it's almost like the need to always try to make whatever I see better. And I was watching that long table retrieving that he was doing, and I thought, my God, right there is can really be something big.
Mm-hmm.
It's known more today as a tracking table than it is as a retrieving table because of the work that I started on it with the tracking dogs.
Yeah.
And the main thing it is when I drew up the square table, sitting in a bar called the Camel's Breath Inn in San Diego, California.
The Camel's Breath Inn, huh? That sounds like a
Camel's
good one.
Breath Inn with a canine handler out there. I was doing a seminar for the San Diego PD, and I drew up this thing, and I talked to the sergeant out there, Sergeant Tom Payne, and I told him about just how I had this vision about doing a square table. I drew it up, and it's the same height today as it was then. You know, it's 36 inches off the ground. It's a 4x4 square. And I put the post in the middle, and I attached the collar to the side of the post like the long table. Mm-hmm. And the whole theory behind it was if you stress a person, if I stress you, your options of my stress is flight, submission, avoidance, or fight.
Uh-huh.
Well, that's your only choices: flight, fight, submit, or avoid.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you put the dog up, take him up off the ground. Why do you think veterinarians and groomers take a dog from the ground and put him on the table? I think they do it for convenience.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why they did it, was for convenience.
Yep.
But then at the same time, you take them out of the element of confidence. Their power is on the ground. Mm-hmm. And when you take them up and put them on the table, you take their power away from them. So whatever their weakness is, you're going to magnify it right there in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, whatever weakness they've got, they're going to, it's modified. Then when you do the peekaboo noise and things of that nature to try to arouse this dog, well, it soon I understood that first of all, the table, you couldn't bolt the collar to the side of the table because it got a bad rap then because it stressed, it just loaded the dogs too much, and they couldn't actually get in to trying to go in avoidance or submission because they was bolted up like in the forced retrieve table.
Yep.
So I changed the table from being bolted to about a 10-inch chain, and that gave the dog the opportunity to actually move around up there. And then when you stressed him, he had the opportunity mentally to actually to go into that mental process of flight, submission, or avoidance, or actually attempt to fight back.
Mm-hmm.
So the main thing to remember here is you limit their options. And the key to it is you're going to allow them mentally to enter the option that's going. Like if they attempt to go submissive and lay down, they can't accomplish it mentally because the chain ain't long enough so they can't lay down.
Yeah.
If they back up, their back feet fall off the table, so flight they eliminate as an option.
Mm-hmm.
When they go into avoidance, try to wrap around, they put themselves in a bad pickle, and they understand real quick they got themselves in a bad dilemma.
Mm-hmm.
So next thing you know, they themselves have eliminated the options of flight, submission, or avoidance, and the first thing you're going to get is a response that's going to be somewhat defensive.
Yeah.
In other words, you're going to get a growl, a snarl, or a lip curl snarl, or a bark. And the moment that the dog does that, you've got him coming your way then because you're now starting to shape his behavior on how to deal with the defensive mechanism.
Yep.
But most dogs and people don't really understand how to deal with their defensive mechanism. You do not bring the dog out to do bite work out of defense. It's got to come out in the prey.
Mm-hmm.
But see, I broke it down to where it can be understood to where you start out with suspicion,
Mm-hmm.
threat, danger, pain.
Mm-hmm.
Suspicion, threat, danger, pain.
Mm-hmm.
And the dog, to me, had to learn how to deal with every one of those situations, how he perceived it. Because you got to remember, it's always what you're dealing with is how the dog perceives what it is you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you understand, when you start to stress the dog with whatever, noise or whatever, he's going to respond either with flight, fight, submission, or avoidance. But suspicion starts with a curl of the lip, a growl, a snarl. And to me, that's when my training comes in because I am taking on the role of a fighting coach
Mm-hmm.
as the helper. I am your sparring partner. I am the person that praises you and tells you how well you're doing, and I equate the dog's bark with a jab,
Mm-hmm.
and I equate the dog's strike with a punch. And so when I start, the first thing I have to arouse in the dog is his suspicion. So I'm in behind a door and knocking on the door just like you would a house, and
Mm-hmm.
the dog starts looking at that door like, what the hell's going on? And next thing you know, he sees a hand or a finger appear. He hears this some kind of gruntle sounds coming out behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And my little Jack Russell just came in here and all of a sudden just looked at me. I mean, he's staring right at me. The first thing you notice when a dog is there, the initial start of stress is when his mouth shuts.
Uh-huh.
And when his mouth shuts, you're almost like you're setting him. You're taking the dog through a closed mouth, and now that closed mouth, what comes next is a growl or a snarl.
Mm-hmm.
And he responds, you respond, because anything he does assertive, he growls at you, he lip curls at you, snarls at you. You mark that behavior and let him be successful in being able to stop you from doing that, cause you to go out of sight by doing something. Then it goes from a growl, from a snarl to a growl to some kind of a bark. And I shape my barking there based on the fact that, like today, we was working a couple of dogs, and the young dog started out when I was teasing him. He started out going like that. Well, that's too defensive. It's too nervous. There's no way would you get a dog a bite out of that.
Mm-hmm.
So you want the dog to go from like that to going and get him in that balanced bark.
Yep.
Yes, good boy. That's what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And you're coming out and you're praising him just like you would a young sparring kid. Son, that was the way you popped that jab was exactly what I wanted right there.
Yep.
Man, that was really, really good. And to see me take a dog that starts out, growling or snarling, and then get him to where he goes into, over a period of sessions, by marking the right behavior, to where he becomes more confident in his jab. And he starts banging with that jab harder and more confident. Mm-hmm. And you, as an agitator, must be a good actor, because when that dog gives you that good jab, you got to respond by letting that head bounce back, mm-hmm. or he just jabs you in the jaw. And this is, see, for me, if you create the desire for the dog to want to bite you, he understands barking and biting at you is what it is you truly want. He will become more successful and stronger through this whole ordeal, by being put in a situation where he's very successful by barking with his jab, and biting, and why in the hell, think about this, mm-hmm. why would you have to work on a dog's grip if the dog truly wanted to bite you?
Yeah.
See, I don't like a prey monster, and I don't like a dog biting out of fear.
Mm-hmm.
A fear biting dog is going to be grippy all over, and a prey monster is going to be up there, yip, and he's only going to be a sleeve sucker.
Mm-hmm.
And I like a dog that truly is up there, barking, throwing that jab, and striking you with a good, strong grip. And when you got a dog on the square table, you actually got him at eye level.
Mm-hmm.
And picture him barking you back. And he learns he can bark you back just like if he come forward throwing that jab. That jab is bopping at that face of yours, and you're backing away from him to keep him getting punched in the face. He becomes stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger in developing how to throw his jab, which is the bark. Yeah. And then he gets so confident in throwing his jab with his bark, he doesn't want to back you away anymore. He wants to bark you to him. Mm-hmm. And when he starts barking you to him, and you're making moves on him where you're throwing your arms out there to him, where he's literally trying to grip you in the arm and bite you, mm-hmm. and he's truly trying to do that out of power, mm-hmm. because he understands what it is to have been threatened. He understands what it has been, if he may have had a little tweak and put on him or something like that. So he learns to deal with suspicion, threat, danger, and pain. Because to me, they got to go through every bit of that. And I'm not talking about being abusive to a dog when I say pain. I'm just saying he has to understand, you up there moving around on him, and all of a sudden you make a movement, and you may bring the stimulation whip under the whole movement and sting him somewhat under where he doesn't see it happening. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, this thing can, put this on me. I got to be more powerful.
Yeah. So ultimately, the table's turning that initial insecurity. It's just teaching the dog to come up through it and be confident. And
that's exactly what it's doing.
Yep.
It's teaching the dog how to deal with what causes him to feel insecure, because they come through it, so mm-hmm. you deal with that suspicion. And I'm going to tell you something. You go to these big dog talks, you see dogs come in the blind, and they're not being real attentive to the heifer.
Uh-huh.
The only reason they're just kind of in there yapping and looking around, because they're not suspicious of him.
Yeah.
They don't have no fear of him. They're not suspicious of him. And a dog, to do it proper, The dog that does it proper has to come in there and have somewhat of suspicion of you, so he actually does bark at you to try to make you move.
Yeah.
He's got the confidence in, like, move, sucker, move, and I'll bust you quick.
Yeah.
Move, and I'll bust you quick. And you tell the dog comes in there and challenges that helper versus those dogs that are going in and just going through the motion.
Yeah.
And a lot of dogs don't understand how to bark. They don't know the meaning behind barking. We're not talking about excessive yapping, yap, 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 yap. I'm talking about they do not understand, and the Europeans have not been real good ones over the years because they only work with the top quality dogs. But they don't understand. I've seen them many, many times where they did not. They send dogs over here that we beat them with, and the reason is because they never did. A lot of them didn't understand how to teach a dog how to express himself through his barking and through his gripping. If the good ones, I've seen the great ones. I've seen the great Reisners, and a lot of them, shit dog, get rid of him. And the reason for this is that the dog didn't show any suspicion. He didn't show any understanding of this. And the shit dog, get him gone. And then they only used the best ones. We didn't always have the best ones over here, so we had to become better trainers. And I think that the trainers here in the States today are as good as anybody in the world, and they've shown that too.
Absolutely.
But you don't ever expect for a USA team to go anywhere in Europe at the world teams and get judged on a level table.
Yeah. Well, man, that's only thing I have left, man, is if you could go back to the very beginning of your dog training and tell yourself one thing, what would it be and why?
Well, one back to the very beginning.
Yeah.
I just wish probably that I had started. I wish I'd started being me sooner. Being me sooner, and quit relying on how I seen other people doing it, because I didn't get better until I started doing it my way by thinking it out and doing it. And in the success in it, John, is I was fortunate because I was pretty damn good at what I was doing. Because, I've won the FA championships. I've taught people to win the FA championships. I won the Schutzen 3 championship when it was called the Schutzen 3 championship, and now it's called the Nationals. So I've won the FHs. I won the Schutzen 3 championship. I won the world qualifiers. I won the international world, and I scored some B scores in the world championships. But I think the thing I like the best is that not only was I successful at competing myself, I was very successful at training with other people and training them with some of my philosophies and some of my ways to become very, very successful. Because there's a lot of them out there that's had a major, major influence in the sport today that I've often said come through my gates.
No, yeah, I've talked to a couple people through the podcast here, and I've had numerous people mention your name as a mentor there. So absolutely, man.
Well, I think that's the strength in the sport is in the fact that the people are willing to share it. Because see, back when I first got into sport, John, man, we used to have a hell of a good time. I mean, the Hanner Hands, the 4 Rounds, the Humbug, we used to get together, man, and we were competitive as hell against each other, and we had some pretty good parties. We enjoyed the competitiveness against each other and enjoyed a lot of fun. But I think that's a lot of it today. They're more into the competing against each other, but they're not into really enjoying each other. So you got some great ones out there right now. I mentioned Debbie earlier. Gary Hanrahan was one of the most successful. Mike Deal was really good. There's so many of them out there right now. The Wallace Paynes, the Mike Deals. I mean, and the Debbies and Gary and them. Of course, Gary's like me, getting kind of old, but we all get old. But there's a lot of good ones out there. But you got to have the educators that are willing to pass it on down, and then you got to have the receivers. And to me, the success of the sports is in what you're willing to share with somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, Man, I appreciate the conversation, man. There's a ton of knowledge in there, and I really appreciate you being so open and sharing all you did, Gene.
John, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity, okay?
All right, no problem, man. Well,
have a good one, buddy.
Yep, you too.
If you ever need me, call me. Stay safe.
Well, yep. Wow, lots of good stuff there from Gene. I wanted to thank him once again for doing the podcast and sharing his knowledge. If you're interested in getting in contact with him, you can go to highendtrial.com/Gene England, and there I'll have his contact email, and you can get a hold of him if you're interested in getting some training with him. That's all I had for today's podcast. I wanted to ask for some help from you guys. Please get on iTunes and rate and review the podcast. That helps me in the ratings get up there and more eyes get on the sport of Schutzhund in general. So do that, and also do your Amazon shopping through the link on my website, highendtrial.com. It doesn't add any money to your purchase. I just get a few pennies as commission. That helps out with the expenses for the podcast here. So we'll see you in a couple weeks for the next episode of the High End Trial Podcast.
I cast no stones, and I build no walls, and I tell the truth. When truth comes to call, and I try to walk that narrow way. Sometimes I go over the lines and I won't make it back till the next day. But I cast no stones. What gives you the right to tell me my business? Good God, man, you're out of your mind. So put up your Bible. Oh, let me get mine. I'm not dragging the whole world to hell. You're wasting my time. I don't talk with Jesus as much as I should. I don't read that good book every day like I could. But I like to stop at the end of the day, and I pray that I hurt nobody. Somebody new found their way. And I cast no stones. What gives you the right to tell me my business? Good God, man, you're out of your mind. So put up your Bible. Oh, let me get mine. I'm not stand